I'll just get Larn to run through a little bit on the background of black spot and some of the treatments as we go through.
Okay, so black spot's probably the number one issue with disease issue with field peas. As you know, bacterial blight's obviously a major issue where it occurs regularly with frosts and colder environments, but black spot still really limits our ability to sow peas early and to sow them at high densities within an environment. Wherever we've seen people get on a roll with field peas and they start to regularly incorporate them in the rotation and the district regularly incorporates them, the black spot just builds up and then really becomes problematic. So what are the options? There's still very little breeding progress been made in field peas for black spot. So we're back to really a management package, and the changes which have come in the last few years are one, there's been the spore prediction model, which is available through SARDI via the Western Australian Department Ag link, and that will predict when the black spot spores are released. And generally it's after rain has occurred from around March onwards. If you have significant rain, you'll get the spore release a couple of weeks after that rain, and that will reduce your risk of black spot affecting the emerging pea seedlings. If obviously you don't have rain until later, say May, you get a late April or May or mid-May break, you've already sown your peas dry or you're about to sow your peas, obviously they're going to be emerging when the black spot is released from those spores. So you can get that more accurate because they have the different models for the different districts by getting on the website and following that, but it is obviously linked to those significant rainfall events early in the season. So that's one thing which has helped. We can understand when that spore release is going to occur, and the theory is you want to have the spore release out of the way and then you sow your peas. Now that's, like I say, well and good if you get good rains in March. If you get good rains in May, they're your first good rains, that obviously makes it a lot more difficult, particularly for low rainfall areas where you want to sow your peas early. So that's part of the puzzle. The other part is what can we do to manage the disease once it's there? And there's been a lot of work done over the years. Initially it was done with the only registered product, which was mancozeb, and a pea pickle tea seed dressing. And the theory was if you've got a crop which you think is going to yield in excess of 1.5 tonnes, it was of some value to have a pea pickle tea and then a 2-spray strategy with mancozeb in your field peas, and you would get around about a 15% yield increase, which was economic. So that strategy was a spray, initially they thought around 8 to 10 weeks after sowing, so pea pickle tea seed dressing on the peas, that would give you protection to around 8 weeks, and then a spray of mancozeb at 8 weeks, and then one at flowering. And those sprays would be combined in front of rain. They're only prophylactic sprays, so they only protect what they hit. So there's no point putting them after rain because you've already had the cycling of the disease from the rain splash. So the idea of the spray is that you put it out a day or two before the rain and you try and give yourself some protection. And it's around that sort of 8-week and early flowering mark. The recent advent on that is that there's been some new fungicide products, Aviator and Amistar, which are giving better protection than mancozeb. And I think SARDI's work has shown in recent years that you are getting longer and a better protection from those new products for black spot. If you still compare them to a fortnightly spray of chlorothalonil, which is considered to be a highly efficacious product on black spot, but it's not registered in field pea, a fortnightly spray of chlorothalonil still will give you better protection than Aviator or Amistar, which is saying that they're not perfect, but obviously you can't come out every 2 weeks and spray your pea crops and still economically survive. So the strategy is worked around that, as I said, about spraying around 6 to 8 weeks after emergence and then at early flowering. There's been a little bit of other work on that, and it's shown that if you have sown and you have got that early infection of black spot, so perhaps you you had to sow when the spores were still cycling, that you can bring that early spray forward to around 4 weeks, and that's had benefit. And the other one is that in wet, long years, and this year could be one, a later spray, a third spray, mid flowering to late flowering is of value too. So they're probably the messages out of all the black spot work. The other thing I guess to think about is that it does survive in the soil for a long time. So it's good to be aware of paddock histories. And a good thing I've always suggested is like note your black spot level down with your peas. So when you come back into that paddock, you've got some idea of what level you might get out of the paddock, because you get the stuff blown in, but you've also got the spores which survive in the paddock. And it can be just as simple as like nil, moderate, nil, low, moderate, high, or severe. You know, just so you've got an idea, because if you're going to come back into a paddock where you've had a severe black spot infection, like after 2016, big long wet year, or there was, going back, 1992 was a terrible one where black spot just hung around in those paddocks for years and years and years and years after that long wet year in 1992. So having a longer spell in those paddocks where you've got a severe or high black spot rating is a good thing. Don't come back for 3 years. You might want to try fava beans or something, or lentils, and come back with your peas a bit later. So that's a little thing which is worthwhile, and all you have to do is look at your crop and say, like, something like this is probably just a low infection at this stage. But if it keeps raining, it could still build up. Black spot is a complex, so there's actually 4 pathogens involved. That's why they call it black spot, not like ascochyta, which is just one pathogen. So there's 4 pathogens involved, and it's polycycle, which means it cycles through its life cycle very quickly. So once you get rain, it can move very quickly. So that's why it spreads through the crop really quickly. So you get this quite aggressive progression of the disease.
Over what time frame do you think the black spot break down in pea crops?
So the general recommendation is around 3 to 4 years rotation. Yep, that's what you want to be at. If you're going to go every second year like they do lentils, you're going to be in all sorts of strife. So I'd give a spell of 3 years and come back on the 4th year. The exception would be if you've had a heavy infection, and that's why I'm saying just make those notes and give it a miss. I would if you've had a heavy infection. The other issue is also if you border last year's stubble, because it can 400 metres, it can move pretty easily in about a 400 metre distance. So if you've had a heavy infection next door, downwind, that's something else to be aware of as well. And what we've seen in Western Australia and also the mid-north and the upper Eyre Peninsula, once that intensity within a district gets up, it does really start to get hard to avoid those black spot showers from, coming in. So you do have to sort of be a bit aware of what your neighbours are doing as well.
Everyone's getting out of peas, so that's pretty.
So you might be right. It's a shame because, like I said, peas tolerate a vast range of soil types. They probably tolerate the drier, more variable spring conditions better than some of the other pulses. But they really do suffer for bacterial blight, black spot, frost, and the other one, was there much downy mildew in peas up here this year?
Not this year.
Okay, because downy mildew really did take the mid-north, like around sort of Hart, Blythe, Brinkworth. It really got stuck into crops around there this year. And again, downy mildew is a long-term survivor in the soil. So if you've had it, you need to treat peas with apron or metalaxyl seed dressing when you go back into that paddock, because it really did knock some of the crops. It's particularly severe in the colder, heavier soils where it gets cold environments and heavier soils. So these mid-north soils are particularly prone to downy mildew. So another little chink in the pea armour, unfortunately. But the good news is the metalaxyl seed dressing does do a good job on it.